Steven Seagal was one of the biggest action stars of the 90s. So where's he been lately? From his weird bromance with a foreign dictator to his brief foray as a spy novelist, here's what the above-the-law star has been up to. Starting in the late 80s, Steven Seagal took a side job as a police consultant in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. Sheriff Harry Lee, a big Seagal fan, asked the action star to train his force in martial arts and marksmanship. Seagal loved the job and did it for so long that Lee eventually enlisted him as a reserve deputy. In 2009, Seagal's side gig became the basis for a reality show on A&E called Steven Seagal: Lawmen. It was similar to Cops in that a film crew tagged along while police officers investigated local crimes as they happened. The big difference, obviously, was that the star of Under Siege was there.
No matter how great our deputies are, there's always going to be areas that are problematic, and we're trying to hit those areas.
Sadly, Seagal reportedly resigned from the force in 2010 after he became the subject of an internal affairs investigation. According to the Phoenix New Times, the investigation sought to uncover the truth about allegations of sex trafficking and sexual assault. Those allegations were corroborated by two other female ex-employees who alleged similar treatment by the actor. However, their suit against Seagal was dropped later in the year. You may be thinking that Steven Seagal is very well suited for a role in a scripted cop series. After all, TV shows about the police are always pretty popular, and Seagal spent years beating up bad guys in movies. Well, you'd be right, because it actually happened. In 2011, Seagal took his crime-fighting, butt-kicking act to TV with the action series True Justice. In addition to creating True Justice, Seagal played Elijah Kane on the series, the head of an elite undercover Seattle task force. The show first aired in Spain on a cable channel called Nitro, before showing up on the American movie network Reels. True Justice ran for 2 seasons. In October 2017, Inside Edition correspondent Lisa Guerrero told The Hollywood Reporter about her 1996 audition for Seagal's Fire Down Below. According to Guerrero, Seagal summoned her to his home for a private rehearsal after the audition. Guerrero declined, and the lead role she said she was promised went to another actor.
If you're an actress in Hollywood, you have been Harvey Weinsteined. In my case, I was Harvey Weinsteined by Steven Seagal.
Television personality Jenny McCarthy also spoke out, saying Seagal demanded she take off her dress during an audition for Under Siege 2. According to Entertainment Weekly, Seagal denied McCarthy's allegations. In January 2018, Rachel Grant, a former Bond girl who appeared in the 007 movie Die Another Day, went public with her own story about Seagal's alleged abuse. Grant told the BBC that during her audition for Seagal's 2003 film Out for a Kill, he pushed her onto a bed and pulled down his pants. Again, Seagal denied any wrongdoing. Additionally, in January 2018, 2 women filed police reports in Los Angeles that alleged Seagal had sexually assaulted them. One of the women was Regina Simons, who appeared as an extra in Seagal's 1994 action film On Deadly Ground. In her report, Simons offered a detailed account of Seagal sexually assaulting her when she was 18. When reached for comment, the LAPD cited confidentiality laws. However, the department did reveal that they were investigating yet another claim against Seagal. According to The Wrap, after the multiple allegations surfaced, it quickly became apparent that Seagal would have to do more than just have his publicist deny the allegations. So the actor went on the offensive. While appearing on Alex Jones' InfoWars, Seagal told the host that he was the victim of a vast, well-funded conspiracy. The actor also added that 40% of the sexual assault allegations coming out of the hashtag #MeToo movement were made up. Seagal also vowed revenge on the people he said were lying. Steven Seagal is reportedly good friends with fellow martial arts movie star Jackie Chan. So while Rush Hour 3 was entering production in 2007, Chan was rumored to have suggested that Seagal play the film's villain. However, he didn't end up in the role, and the script was ultimately rewritten to accommodate Japanese actor Hiroyuki Sanada. Seagal missed another opportunity for a huge comeback when he passed on a role in Sylvester Stallone's 2010 hit, The Expendables. The film showed that there was still a big audience for 80s-style action movies, as well as 80s-style action heroes. The cast of the Expendables series included Stallone himself, Chuck Norris, and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Missing from that list, however, was Steven Seagal. Seagal ultimately declined Stallone's offer because he hated one of the movie's producers, Avi Lerner. The Under Siege star and Lerner had previously worked on several direct-to-video features together. Steven Seagal lives a very full life outside of making movies. He also spends a lot of time traveling around the world visiting his friends who live abroad. As it happens, 2 of his best friends are Buddhist spiritual leader the Dalai Lama and Russian President Vladimir Putin. In addition to his international friends, Seagal gained citizenship in Serbia in January 2016 when he offered to set up a martial arts studio there. Seagal's bromance with Putin has earned the star some enemies. When he told the Russian state-run newspaper Rossiyskaya Gazeta that he considers Putin one of the great living world leaders and that he thinks of the Russian leader like a brother.
He is one of the greatest world leaders and one of the greatest presidents in the world.
Furthermore, after Putin personally granted Seagal a Russian passport in 2016, thus formally making him a citizen of the country, the actor was banned from entering Ukraine. Writing in a letter that was published on the news site Apostrophe, Ukrainian officials said, Steven Seagal has committed socially dangerous actions that contradict the interests of maintaining Ukraine's security. Two Steven Seagal films, The Foreigner and Contract to Kill, earned the not-so-prestigious score of 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. That means that every critic who saw both films didn't like them. Regarding The Foreigner, Scott Weinberg of eFilm Critics said in his review, "This movie is so bad that it makes Seagal's other films look like the combined efforts of Frank Capra and Billy Wilder." As for Contract to Kill, a critic for the AV Club wrote, "Steven Seagal gives the kind of performance traditionally associated with stars who died during filming, and yet Seagal is in almost every scene."
Who is the target?
So what do the critics think about the rest of Seagal's recent direct-to-video filmography? Well, those movies haven't even been seen by enough people to be rated yet. In fact, as of May 2023, a whopping 53 of his movies since 2001 are listed as no score yet on Rotten Tomatoes. Despite the action star's incredibly long filmography, you can count on one hand the number of certified fresh movies he has.
Just a lowly cook.
If you believe there's a secret globalist agenda that threatens to destroy the United States, what's the best way of getting your message out? Well, since this is exactly what Steven Seagal believes, his answer was to write an action spy novel titled The Way of the Shadow Wolves, The Deep State and the Hijacking of America. Co-credited to Seagal and writer Tom Morrissey, the novel is billed as a book of fiction based on reality. The plot follows an Arizona tribal officer who untangles a high-reaching conspiracy among drug smugglers, the mainstream media, and the United States government. As with many of Seagal's films, the reviews weren't exactly kind. In December 2017, the AV Club highlighted a series of Amazon write-ups and social media posts that gleefully mocked the book and its authors. Furthermore, AV Club critic Nathan Rabin hate-read the entire book in order to offer an in-depth rundown of the story. On the other hand, the right-wing classic rocker Ted Nugent posted on Facebook that he loved Seagal's book. In September 2017, Seagal appeared on Good Morning Britain to weigh in on the national anthem. At the time, a large number of professional athletes were protesting racial injustice and inequality in America by opting not to stand during the anthem.
We have a lot of people that aren't treated equally, aren't given equal opportunities.
It's a complicated issue that's inspired no shortage of debate. But from Seagal's point of view, it's all very simple. While insisting that he believed in free speech, Seagal made it clear that he was deeply offended by the idea that anyone would refuse to stand during the anthem. He told host Piers Morgan, "I don't agree they should hold the United States of America and the world hostage by picking a venue where people are tuning in to watch a football game and imposing their political views. I think it's outrageous, I think it's a joke, it's disgusting." According to multiple actors, Steven Seagal is an incredibly difficult person to work with. John Leguizamo, who co-starred with Seagal in 1996 Executive Decision, discovered this the hard way. While filming the action thriller, Seagal got angry with his co-star and allegedly shoved Leguizamo against a wall. Seagal also made life hard for the Saturday Night Live cast. While hosting the show in 1991, he was very critical of the cast and writing staff. According to Live from New York, the complete uncensored history of Saturday Night Live as told by its stars, writers, and guests. Tim Meadows is even quoted as saying in the book, "Steven Seagal didn't realize that you can't tell somebody they're stupid on Wednesday and expect them to continue writing for you on Saturday." David Spade, meanwhile, said that in his 6 years on Saturday Night Live, Seagal was the absolute worst host, which probably had a lot to do with his taste in comedy. For instance, former cast member Julia Sweeney noted in Live from New York that Seagal had an idea for a sketch in which he played a therapist who attempts to sleep with a rape survivor. As it turned out, Seagal was so impossible to work with that he was banned from ever hosting Saturday Night Live again. Stephen Tobolowsky also learned firsthand about Seagal's difficulty on set. In The Glimmer Man, Tobolowsky played a serial killer, so naturally Seagal was supposed to blow the bad guy away. But then, as Tobolowsky told the AV Club, Seagal decided it was bad for his karma to keep killing people on screen. So he wanted Tobolowsky's character to survive.
"This is God's house. Don't make me do this."
Thinking on his feet, Tobolowsky quickly explained that his character was trapped in his own private hell. So, by killing the villain, Seagal would be allowing the bad guy to reincarnate as a more peaceful being. Seagal agreed, and the scene went on as scripted. In addition to acting, Steven Seagal has done quite a bit of fight choreography. According to IMDb, most of the films he's choreographed are his own. In the early 80s, however, Seagal worked on the James Bond film Never Say Never Again. Apparently, he was brought in to teach Sean Connery about martial arts. Connery, however, was already well-versed in karate. While preparing for 1967's You Only Live Twice, he was even awarded an honorary third-degree black belt. But for his 7th outing as Bond, Connery needed to learn a little Aikido. so Seagal was hired to teach him how to throw opponents and manipulate joints. At first, the lessons seemed to be going well. In fact, they were going too well. As Connery admitted to Jay Leno on The Tonight Show in 1996,
And then I got a little cocky because I thought I knew what I was doing.
but then things took a turn for the worse. From there, an irritated Seagal allegedly grabbed Connery's arm and broke the actor's wrist. While he was undoubtedly in pain, Connery kept on training. In fact, he didn't realize that Seagal had actually snapped his wrist until the late 90s. Of course, Seagal can take a bit of pain as well. While working on his breakout film, 1988's Above the Law, actor Henry Silva broke Seagal's nose with an overzealous punch. Knowing the show must go on, Seagal stayed up late that night, icing his battered nose so he could keep on shooting the next day. Steven Seagal has battled all sorts of bad guys on the silver screen, from terrorists to the Yakuza. But he's also faced some scary villains in real life, namely the Mafia. In the 90s, Seagal teamed up with producer Julius R. Nasso. Together, the duo made a string of hits. However, their relationship soured in 2000, and the two eventually had a falling out. But things took a dark turn when the Gambino crime family got involved. One day, Seagal was ordered into a car and escorted to a Brooklyn restaurant. It was there that he met an alleged Gambino captain named Anthony Sonny Ciccone. According to CBS News, Ciccone ordered Seagal to start working with Nasso again. He also demanded that Seagal fork over $150,000 for every film he made. Evidently, Seagal was so shaken, he gave the gangsters $700,000. The martial artist had every reason to be afraid, because as CBS News reported, as Seagal left the meeting, someone supposedly told him, "If you would have said the wrong thing, they would have killed you." The scandal came to light in 2003, when the government indicted alleged crime boss Peter Gotti and 16 others for a whole host of crimes. In addition to Seagal's testimony, the government had recordings of several individuals, including Ciccone and Nasso. In the recordings, the two men discussed how they would intimidate Seagal. They even laughed about how they had scared the movie star. Nasso defended himself by saying Seagal had backed out of several movie deals and owed him $500,000. Regardless, the producer was sentenced to 1 year in federal prison. But once a crooked mob guy, always a crooked mob guy. Nasso wanted his cash and sued Seagal for $60 million. After the producer got out of jail, he settled with Seagal for an undisclosed amount of money. While never a critical darling, Steven Seagal used to pull in some impressive box office numbers. But throughout the 2010s, the majority of Seagal's films went straight to DVD or streaming. Furthermore, Seagal isn't making as many movies as he used to. In fact, as of April 2023, Seagal's last film, Beyond the Law, was released in 2019. So what happened to Steven Seagal's career? Well, he blames his decline on the FBI. In 2002, Los Angeles Times reporter Anita Bush was investigating Seagal about Julius Nasso and the producers' association with the Mafia. But one morning, she found a dead fish, a rose, and a sign that read "Stop" on her windshield. There was also a brand new bullet hole in her car. Afraid, Bush informed the FBI. As a result, the feds began investigating Seagal. At first, the FBI thought the actor had hired a detective named Anthony Pellicano to intimidate Bush. Pellicano was a private eye who would later be convicted of illegally spying on celebrities. The FBI also suspected Seagal of hiring a thug to scare Vanity Fair writer Ned Zeman with a gun.
I know you, don't I?
But after digging deeper, the FBI concluded there was no evidence against Seagal. Instead, they focused on Pellicano. And then Seagal just fell by the wayside. The FBI never charged him, but they didn't exonerate him either. According to the Los Angeles Times story, the actor believes all the notoriety from the Pellicano case majorly harmed his career. And he may have a point. As one Hollywood publicist told the Los Angeles Times, Steven Seagal was no Harrison Ford when this scandal happened, but these accusations certainly hastened his decline. So it only makes sense that Seagal wants an apology from the FBI for possibly destroying his career. As for Pellicano, he was convicted on wiretapping charges in 2008 and sent to prison. Having served his time, Pellicano was released in March of 2019. Steven Seagal's hands aren't just for breaking people's bodies. They're also for making sweet, sweet music. Yes, the star of Hard to Kill is also a longtime musician who loves the blues. Whether the blues loves him back is another question entirely. Seagal has been playing guitar since age 12 and heads the Steven Seagal Blues Band. It wasn't until 2005, however, that Seagal released his first album, Songs from the Crystal Cave. The album features straightforward blues, though the songs aren't nearly as grimy and soulful as something you might hear from B.B. King or Buddy Guy. In fact, Sputnik Music called the album the Plan 9 from Outer Space of records. There are various reasons for the album's harsh criticism, such as Seagal's mumbling, half-asleep singing style. The actor's less than impressive guitar playing also didn't wow the critics. Additionally, the album featured some downright bizarre lyrics, such as this gem, "You're like a ghost. The more you eat, the more you're hungry. A hungrier ghost." He's got Russian citizenship, a willingness to offer as many opinions on a wide variety of subjects, and a measure of celebrity. So, it was probably only a matter of time before the Russian government offered Steven Seagal a job. That time came in August 2018, when Seagal was made a special envoy for humanitarian ties with the United States. That's a fancy-sounding gig, but as the Russian Foreign Ministry noted when announcing Seagal's appointment, it's an unpaid position. It's also a position that's a little difficult to understand, at least in terms of Seagal actually being able to get anything done. As the ministry's description of the role notes, the envoy's job is to facilitate relations between Russia and the United States in the humanitarian field, including cooperation in culture, arts, public and youth exchanges. One of 2022's most original and critically adored films was The Menu, a black comedy served with a zest of social commentary and a dash of horror. Among other big names who appeared in the film, such as Ralph Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Nicholas Hoult, the movie featured John Leguizamo as a movie star named George Diaz. In the film, the Diaz character is no longer relevant as a movie star, instead fading into obscurity as he becomes an ever-increasing target of ridicule. For inspiration in playing this washed-up has-been, Leguizamo chose his former co-star, Steven Seagal. During an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Leguizamo certainly didn't mince words when revealing where his The Menu character came from. He told the outlet, "I kind of based my performance on Steven Seagal. I had a bad run-in with him. He's kind of a horrible human."
What are you, blind? We're closed, okay?
You kind of talk too much.
Since Seagal's position with the Russian government is mostly honorary, it doesn't necessarily signify anything about the actor's politics. However, it's harder to say the same about Seagal's decision to hold his 70th birthday party in Moscow in April of 2022. After all, in attendance at the bash were two pro-Putin journalists, both of whom had already been sanctioned by the European Union due to Russia's controversial invasion of Ukraine. Seeing as Putin's invasion of Ukraine occurred only a few months prior, in February of 2022, Seagal raised eyebrows when he told his guests, "I love all of you and we stand together, through thick and through thin." Putin is not Seagal's only controversial friend in politics, however. The actor has publicly voiced support for former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, a leader whose strict stance on crime earned him the nickname the Punisher. Seagal has also demonstrated his support for Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, a leader whose divisive tactics have led many news outlets to either question his status as a democratic leader or outright pronounce him a dictator.
You're hanging around with the wrong people.
One of the great gifts of being a famous actor is the ability to diversify your income with celebrity endorsements. And Steven Seagal hasn't missed the opportunity to do just that. In 2018, the actor lent an endorsement to Bitcoin 2Jet, a cryptocurrency aiming to rival Bitcoin. He also received a tidy sum for his support. However, Seagal failed to disclose the payments he received, which violated U.S. federal law and led to charges from the Securities and Exchange Commission. According to the SEC, Bitcoin 2Gen promised Seagal $250,000 in cash and $750,000 worth of B2G tokens as payment for his promotions. The actor ultimately received around $157,000. But since he never reported his earnings, Seagal got in trouble. On its website, the SEC explained the reasoning behind the charges, writing, "These investors were entitled to know about payments Seagal received, or was promised to endorse this investment so they could decide whether he may be biased." Common sense also supports the SEC's reasoning, as celebrities obviously advertise products they don't necessarily support solely for the paycheck. To Seagal's credit, upon learning of his offense, he cooperated with the SEC investigation, ultimately paying around $314,000 in disgorgement and penalties. In addition to John Leguizamo and the cast of Saturday Night Live, you can also add Charlize Theron to the list of celebrities who dislike Steven Seagal. During her June 22, 2020 appearance on The Howard Stern Show, Theron made it abundantly clear that she despises Seagal with a passion. When Stern asked Theron how she prepares herself mentally for her roles in action films, the actress said that she often watches YouTube videos of martial artists in their fights, adding, "You always come across that odd Seagal video of him fighting in Japan. But he really isn't. He's overweight and can barely fight. Look it up, it's ridiculous." When Stern remarked on how comfortable Theron seemed in publicly mocking another well-known industry professional, the actress told the host, "I have no problem talking about Seagal because he's not very nice to women." Though she didn't elaborate, Theron was likely alluding to the multiple accusations of sexual assault and misconduct leveled against Seagal over the years. It's no secret that Steven Seagal is known for his international adventures, both on and off the screen. As a friend of Vladimir Putin, Seagal continues to meet with the Russian president fairly regularly. But apparently, becoming a Russian citizen wasn't enough for the American actor. According to CNN, Putin honored Seagal in early 2023 with an order of friendship. As the news network noted, Putin cited the actor's great contribution to the development of international, cultural, and humanitarian cooperation as his reasoning for the honor. The award itself is a relatively recent invention, having first been instituted by former President Boris Yeltsin in 1994. Seagal's award comes off the heels of his 2022 visit to a destroyed Ukrainian prison during the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Appearing on the government-owned network Zvezda, Seagal surveyed the damages with the intent of educating those who haven't seen the destruction firsthand. It should be noted, however, that the actor did all of this from a Kremlin-based perspective. But what more can be said about Seagal's strange ties to Putin and the Russian government? The actor has made some very interesting choices in recent years, including his infamous birthday party in Moscow. He also consistently finds himself honored by Putin and the Russian government, so one can only wonder what position or award Steven Seagal will be given next. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE 4673.